Hello, hello. How are you, Antonio?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's going well. So, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us here for the Stuttering Society website. I would like to start with you just telling us a little bit about when did you start working in the HR field?
hmm So I've always been in recruitment. Started on the agency side about 10 years ago, and since then, it's been a mix of in-house roles. So from the agency side, I went into Serco, where I did a bit of work for the European Central Bank and European Space Agency contracts. Ended up running space recruitment for them in Europe, which was a small team of some young people, including myself. I was quite young at the time, 25, running that team. So
Wow.
it was a good run. Since then, I moved into running recruitment for an engineering company about a year from Germany. And then I became the head of recruitment at Tipico, which is Germany's biggest sports betting company, both on the retail side and the digital side. So very fast-paced business, good profits, but also a big employer. It was a moment where the company was restructuring and doing a lot of M&A. So we went from 700 to 1,500 employees in about a year. So it was quite an exciting run. And since then, I moved on to NATO, where I joined the international staff as the head of talent acquisition. And since a few months, I'm in the NCIA consulting for them on their Oracle rollout. So it's been a very, very interesting road, but always in recruitment.
That's great. You know that the website, it's about speech
Mm-hmm.
difficulties. How do you think like stuttering could be better dealt with at the workplace?
It's a difficult question. I think I would start with awareness. I think in general, a lot of people probably, and that probably includes myself, to be very honest, we don't
Yeah.
understand the complexity around stuttering and what can be done from an employer's point of view to look at it from a different angle and help people as well overcome the difficulty and actually get the most out of your employees. And because that in the end should be the bedrock of any HR function, just to get the most out of the people and make them have a good experience. So from that angle, I think first should be awareness. And probably then you can look at the entire policy spectrum. How do you approach it? What kind of support, if you look at a small and medium enterprise, what kind of support can you get as a business to like I said, get the most out of the people who have this speech impairment. And it's not an easy road, and there's not a lot out there on this topic, I think. So it's a good initiative what you're doing.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I think like sometimes I have been also invited for some job, interviews, and many times nowadays they do through this video system. But then sometimes we don't know if we should contact, HR and ask for better accommodation on, is it
Mm-hmm.
possible to do a face-to-face interview? How do you think people who like stutter could better, approach this situation?
Yeah, it's not an easy one either, because a lot of the companies that use this system use them in order to filter through hundreds or dozens of CVs. So they use it kind of as a pre-screening method. Um, in that sense, what that means is that the company doesn't want to invest a lot of time on the candidates at the beginning. It's a matter of efficiency. So if somebody goes and asks a HR department, can I please get a different arrangement? I think nowadays, in at least the parts of the world which I know, which is mainly the Western world, you would not have necessarily an issue with the HR department. They would understand. But before doing that, I would recommend that the person who may have that fear, which is, it's a normal thing to fear if you've got that type of situation, I would recommend that person trial tests the tool, most of these tools will allow you to do a trial run before you start the interview. So, you click on the link and you set yourself up with your login and your password. And most of the tools will allow you to test your video, to test your audio.
Yeah.
You could also reach out to the customer support team of the tools. So, for example, HireVue, which I know a little bit,
Yeah.
or Sunru, which I know quite well. They've got fantastic customer support teams. So you could reach out to those teams and say, hey guys, I've got this concern. Could you set me up with a trial run so I can make sure that I can present myself? It may be that they can set something up for you. So I would try those things first before going to the HR team, because, like I said, in some cases those teams are overwhelmed, and they would maybe take a long time to deal with your query. So I would try and do that to increase your level of comfortability. If you don't feel comfortable after the trial run, then yeah, I think reaching out to the HR team is a good thing to do.
In terms of actually the face-to-face interview, how do you think employers could better, approach having someone who have a speaking disability? How do you think it would be better for them to assist? Do you think for someone who also stutter, is it better for them to immediately say, I'm sorry guys, but I have this, issue. I struggle with my speech. Or do you think it's better not to say anything and let them, realize they have a speech impediment?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the topic, but what I would suggest from a personal point of view is to bring it up at the beginning and say, thank you very much for having me here. Just so you know, I've got a small speech impairment. So if you see me perhaps sometimes take a bit more time, that is the reason for it. So that sets everybody on a level playing field. Of course, that it's the same type of situation that you may have with disabilities in general. So if you bring it up at the beginning, you may not get farther away with some companies because of discrimination, because of lack of understanding, or for whatever reason. But I think if that is going to be your potential employer, you should rather be with a company that is open-minded enough to allow you to be evaluated without any type of regard for the issue at hand. I've been in an interview recently here at the NCIA with one of the candidates being a person that apparently used to stutter, and this was someone, and I know this, I've not been long in the business enough to know this, but I know this because one of the panel members remember the candidate. So it was brought up as a comment, nothing to impact the evaluation of the person, but it was brought up as a comment later in the panel review to say, by the way, this person, I don't know if you remember the person, but wow, what an incredible change in terms of his ability to communicate. So it was seen as a fantastic step. Of course, not everybody gets to interview twice in 2 years with the company, but I just bring this up to perhaps highlight that, these type of things, when brought up, when clearly stated, it could actually reflect really positively on the person. To overcome these difficulties is not easy, and if somebody manages to do that, it's quite an incredible achievement.
There are some people who stutter, depending on how severe it is, that they really believe there are some types of jobs that they cannot do. From an HR perspective, do you believe there is any type of job that someone who have a speech impediment cannot do? Because I personally do not believe that, because people who stutter, they have so many other skills and talents that I think they can do whatever they want, and they can be whoever they do want to be. But do you think, is there any type of job that you would recommend more or less for someone who has a speech impediment?
Yeah, I think it's yeah. When I think about this one, I think about the movie about the King's Speech. So if somebody can be the King of England and have a speech impairment and overcome it and become, somebody that speaks on the radio for hours and hours, I think, that gives a strong message that a lot of people can. So there's an angle there about opportunity. As an employer, when I hire somebody, I look at their potential. I don't just look at the paper or the face in front of me right now. I try and think about how this person could develop and what can we get out of this person as a business. So yeah, I think again, there's a lot of awareness that needs to be raised in businesses to see past this and see if there are ways that the company could, for example, support the person or approach the tasks, daily tasks of the job in perhaps a different angle that allows the company to get the most out of the employee. But to go back to your question, are there jobs that people with stutter cannot do? I struggle to think of one. I think a lot of customer support jobs, you know, where you're timed by the second and analyzed by the company, how quickly you handle queries. And I think it probably comes down to training and confidence and reinforcement and support from the business. Perhaps if the person is not great on the phone, these days, this type of jobs handle also chats. Perhaps that person could do a fantastic job managing the chat function of the customer support team. So it's all about how you build confidence and how you build the support network around the person so they can be the best they can be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally also see and think also like that. You have mentioned a few times now awareness, a lack of it. How do you think we could better raise, you know, a knowledge about this topic? Let's say me as someone who actually, you know, like have this speech impediment, and also from the employer side, how you think we can better raise awareness on this topic?
It is a very difficult one because I'm not an employment disability professional or speech therapist, but what I see is in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of employers have become very aware and have done a lot of work around making their workforce aware on other type of biases and disability issues and how to look at them professionally and fairly as a business. So I think it all comes down to fairness, the perception of your own biases as a recruiter or a hiring manager. There's a lot of good training that is being done on many businesses about that, but I think there's also probably public sector support, public awareness campaigns. You've got some examples, like I just mentioned that movie, or what Joe Biden did the other day with that kid that was mind-blowing. So I think there's a lot of momentum recently on this, and perhaps, I don't know if there is something that you can do with your project, but I really hope so.
Yeah, thank you. And do you think when someone who stutter goes to a job, you know, interview, do you think there's anything they can do to highlight their skills, to just so that employers do not focus too much on the, you know, on the speech impediment, but can really see through it and see the skills and the talents and what they can really bring to the table?
It's also not an easy thing to do, and probably requires the person to do a lot of mock interviewing and practicing and all the rest of it. Interviewing is hard, and in these times it's even harder when you've got countries that have 20+% unemployment. But one thing I would do is try and focus. If I was a candidate with that type of situation, I would always try to focus on making sure that the people across the table understand that I am very motivated, why I'm motivated, why am I applying for this job, how does this job impact my career, and how can I make an impact on the business. So to sum it up, highlight your motivation and your willingness to learn and adapt and, you know, cross whatever rivers you've got to, as a skill and as an asset that you may have as a candidate. Yes, your current speech capability may be very different from other people, but you're also very different from many other angles. You could highlight your other skills, but always try and close it up or focus a lot on the motivation side of things. I'm still surprised how many candidates do not know much about the employer that they're interviewing with. When you interview them and you ask them, you know, why are you applying here, or what can you tell us about our company? A lot of people just don't say much on that. So even though it could be, you know, interviewing 101, it's still, you know, a significant amount of people don't get that right.
And in terms of people who are already employed and they want to have a managing position, but they think that maybe requires too much speaking, how do you think they could better deal? Maybe they have everything it takes to be a manager, but they are just like scared because of the speech impediment. What do you think they should do?
Yeah, I would ask them to. I mean, I would suggest that they ask externally for support, either through a professional or a network of support. Not just from the speech impediment part, but also from the career development point of view. So there are a lot of resources out there that and networks that are oriented at helping people sell themselves better, perform better at their jobs, learn people management skills, communication skills, stakeholder management skills. So there's a hell of a lot out there. But I would also tell these people to ask their HR team for their opinion and their support, and say, you know, this is my career goal. I would like to get to this position, and I feel at the moment I am not being considered because of this reason. What can we do together to overcome this or to address this? And see what they have to say. It could be that a lot of the HR teams will come back and say, oh, we don't know. But I think that their job is actually to go out and find out what that can be done to support the employee to develop him or herself.
Yeah, true. That's true. I think because it's still like stuttering, it feels to me that it's still a little bit of a taboo at work. So I think some people, they don't want to really bring up this topic because they just sometimes like scared what people will think, or maybe they will never get a promotion if people know that they have a speech impediment. So I think it's a very tricky situation because there's still this lack of, you know, awareness and knowledge about the topic, and you never really know how the other person will treat this topic or receive this information.
Yeah.
If you could give one tip to people who like Stutter, who are right now going through job, you know, interviews, if you could give one tip, one, you know, advice, what would it be?
I would say never lose faith in yourself. So that's what I would always keep in mind. No matter what life throws at you, you're still in control of your own destiny. I very much believe that. I've seen candidates, I think about the previous economic crisis, for example, where I've seen candidates that were brilliant and they were unemployed long term. And now some of these people are running 20, 30, 40 people teams in very prestigious institutions. So, you know, hold yourself dear to yourself and to examples around you of people that have managed to overcome these difficulties. Learn as much as you can from them. Reach out to them. Why not? And just don't stop believing in yourself. I think everyone is in control of their own destiny, and there's so much that we can do to help each other.
This is a really nice message, and I think it's something that we need to think sometimes every day, because it can be really hard to go through a speech impediment on a daily basis and not knowing if you ever be fluent, if you ever get your like dream job, and if things will be like you wish. So it's really nice to every day, you know, like remember that we really have to believe in ourselves and just go for it. So thank you so much, Antonio. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us here.
Anything I can do, you know, my door is always open to you.
See you soon.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Ciao.
Ciao.